Look, everybody has something going on, right? They're going through taking care of a sick family member. They're going through financial dire straits, or they're going through a divorce, or they just had a death in the family. Whatever it is they're going through, when they get there, none of that stuff matters, right? They have to be their best regardless of circumstance. The circumstance is not the excuse. They have to be their best in spite of it.
I'm Damon Lemby, and welcome to the Learn It All podcast, the show for leaders who know that lifelong learning can be your ultimate advantage. I'm super excited to kick off 2026. 2025 was a tough year for all of us, full of uncertainty, challenges, craziness. And so what I'm doing is in 2026, 5 days in a row, I'm bringing in world-class athletes will be joining me, and they're going to be sharing around mindset, habits, how to overcome challenges, how to work within constraints. Day after day, I highly recommend you take in this entire series. And to kick off the series is none other than Arjun Dhingra. He's a two-time Taekwondo world champion. He's a former co-head of Team USA. He's one of the top mortgage brokers in the country, a big-time keynote speaker, and he's a founder of LFG Society, which is a community built for growth, resilience, connection for high performers. And I'm proud to say one of my closest friends in the world. And we talked about things like why disruption isn't an option anymore. It's not really a matter if it's coming, it's just a matter of when. And the real difference is who's going to be able to adapt and who's going to be left behind. Arjun's going to share with us the difference between the mindset of a gold medalist and a silver medalist. And it comes down to 1% that's different between the two. And he's going to share with you the secret behind that. He's going to share with us why audacity and arrogance, really believing that you have all the answers, which I like to call a know-it-all mentality, is more dangerous now than ever before. And why really caring is the ultimate advantage. How service, community, and constant evolution, not just chasing money or titles, really caring about people will help you achieve long-term success and real impact.
Arjun, look, the bottom line is disruption can hit all of us. But at the end of the day, when that punch lands, do we fold and cry like a baby, or do we learn how to counterpunch?
You got to counterpunch, man. Like, I think the taxicab industry, and I love that this is where we're starting the conversation, man. The taxicab industry has basically taught us that when disruption comes, without adapting at all, you're pretty much just sealing your own fate. And that's what happened to them, right? The entire consumer experience had become really stale and shit for people that were riding in cabs. And entrepreneurs saw this on the sidelines and said, that is ripe for disruption. We can turn that upside down on its head, right? Some cool concepts came about in the form of Uber, then Lyft, not too long after that. They funded them, leveled it. Entire industry turned totally upside down, never the same. So disruption is not a matter of if it happens, but when, because cycles change, consumer behaviors and consumer responses change. They want something better. They want something different. Technology is making things all around me improve. Why shouldn't this improve also? So they get dissatisfied and they want better. And if you don't adapt and do something, then you're going to suffer the same fate that the taxi cab industry did, because that's what Uber did to them. And it's happened in my business, in mortgage. It continually happens. There's ripe disruption all the time. So real estate has it happen with lawsuits. Tech is constantly disrupting certain industries, right? Like, look at travel agencies. That completely got upended by the internet. So it's like I said, it's a matter of when, not if. Now, we've got what I call a 3-part framework that I like to use for how to counterpunch, effectively against disruption, to make sure that you'll always last. Like, you'll never be outcasted or left irrelevant or turned into a dinosaur. You'll actually still be able to outlast it. And I can get into that if you'd like to.
Well, I want to get into it in a second, but my first follow-up question on that is, why do some people just close a blind eye to it? Okay. I mean, because with AI and everything out there, if you're not getting involved with AI, if you're not getting out of your comfort zone, well, guess what? I mean, you're stacking the odds against yourself. So I absolutely want to go into your framework, but at the end of the day, your framework doesn't matter if you're not going to make that shift, that mindset shift, right, and move forward.
Yeah, I call it AA, and it's what's literally been responsible for ending careers and killing jobs. And it's what ultimately was, when we do the obituary, or the autopsy on the taxi cab industry, AA is what led them into the same grave. And what I mean by that and this is exactly what you're talking about, why people are stuck and they don't do anything, is audacity and arrogance. Okay, I'll start with arrogance. The arrogance to think that you know everything and that you're good where you're at, and the audacity to think that you don't need to evolve, or you don't need to adapt, or you don't need to stay current with the times. You say AI, you just said AI. AI is something that you would better adapt with and adapt to and incorporate into your business model or into your systems, into your day-to-day, because it'll improve efficiencies, whether you like it or not. And you should like it because it's actually a good thing for you. But if you choose to ignore it, and you're literally going by way of the taxi cab industry, because you're saying, I know enough and I don't need any of this stuff and I'm going to ignore it. People ask all the time, is AI going to replace me? And the answer is, the person who embraces AI will replace the ones who don't embrace it at all. It's not that AI will replace you entirely on its own, but if you team up with AI and you incorporate it, you'll actually be able to replace everyone else that's being stubborn in your industry or space, regardless of where you work. So that, Damon, to me is why people don't do it. Having a high level of arrogance and the audacity to think that you don't need to evolve and you're fine and everything's fine the way that it is.
I love it. I mean, I just call it know-it-all mentality, right?
Yeah,
You
it's
got
the
all
same
the
thing. Yep.
answers. You have
Yeah.
it all figured out. That's why I always say too, leaders aren't born or made, they're always in the making. You have to be continuing to learn. And we're going to get into your story and all the success you've had and everything. But it is so true. If you get stuck in your ways and you're not humble and you got it all figured out, then you're just bound for failure. But walk us through the 3-step framework for the counterpunch.
Yeah, so I think, again, disruption is something everyone needs to be mindful of. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, but when. And you can prepare yourself as an industry, as a company, and as an individual entrepreneur, solopreneur, to be able to withstand it and then actually thrive in the midst of that disruption. The first thing that you have to do, and you have full control over this, is you have to be visible. You've got to take full ownership and accountability for your visibility. Now, this is where a personal brand comes into account here. This is where using a marketing vehicle, and maybe it's social media, to actually empower or throw gas on the fire when it comes to that visibility. But all of us have direct control over how visible we are, because if you're visible enough, you'll have enough opportunities, enough conversations, and enough business to be able to outlast. That's the only way to give yourself a fighting chance. So it's the first part of the framework, but it's the most important coming out of the gates, because without visibility, you're dead in the water.
Yeah, I want to throw my buddy Scott under the bus, because him and I were talking last night. My really good buddy Andy Storch has a new book out called Own Your Own Brand, and how important it is to have a personal brand. And Scott's like, we don't need a personal brand. Only thought leaders like yourself who are out there on social media. What is the downside for individuals who take that mindset into step one when it comes to visibility?
Every single person has a personal brand. Whether they've taken control of it is entirely their choice. A lot of people haven't. Now, a personal brand sometimes, and business brand, and people get it confused, and then the waters get a little bit muddy. I'm going to break it down for you very simply in how I teach it to people that market themselves in real estate and in mortgage and just a general creative. A brand is simply, a personal brand that is simply your reputation. And your reputation is the sum of all that you put out into the world. That's it. So if you do a lot of good things, then that's your reputation, that's your brand. Now, a brand shows up to meetings before you do. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's a question you got to ask. What do people say about me when I'm not in the room? What do people actually think of me? I've got a personal brand exercise that I do with my business and our clients that we work with every quarter. And sometimes the answers are not great. It's a way to kind of QC check your own business. And I encourage everyone to do this that's listening. Ask the last 5 people you worked with, whether they were referral partners or they were strategic partners, B2B, if it was direct to consumer, whatever it is. Ask the last 5 people you conducted a transaction or business with and tell them, hey, I am looking to always make my business better and fine tune it. And I'm taking stock in some things right now and I could use your help. It's only going to take a second. Can you describe in one word what it was like to work with me when we did that deal together in February, when we worked on that project together in March? Can you tell me in one word what it was like? There's your brand right there. What those 5 answers are. Now, the reason why I tell you to do it in one word is because that's all it takes, because there's immense power in one word, but also because when people have very little friction to giving you the answer you want, if you're saying, hey, could you type me up a quick paragraph? Nobody has time for that. But one word, they can text it to you. So when you text them this, They'll tell you the one word because it'll be whatever comes to mind right there in the moment that they're feeling. That's going to tell you where you stand. And this is going to tell you either that you're on the right path in terms of your brand or your ownership of it, or what you need to actually like pivot on and fine tune and, you know, and reverse course or fix. When I did this exercise for the first time before I started actually taking full ownership of having my brand, the answers were not good, right? It was not good because I had a team that was doing things very differently from how I was doing it, and I didn't realize it. So people told me this, and it was uncomfortable to hear, but it told me exactly what needs to be fixed. And we do this now every quarter in a lot of our businesses. Within our media company, we do it in our mortgage business. I do it even in the coaching stuff that I do. I want to I'm maniacal almost about wanting that kind of feedback because it's what we all need. So I think a personal brand is huge. And this, you know, tying this back to visibility, like it's everything. Without it, like you're literally going to be nothing. Like someone's going to eat your lunch. So you absolutely have to take ownership of whatever personal brand that's following you around out there in this world and do whatever you have to do to protect it, enhance it, improve it, make it better all the time. Like really, really own it. I can't stress that enough. So I disagree with your friend Scott, and I'm in full alignment with your author friend that a personal brand is literally everything. It saved my career. It's the only reason I'm in business right now, that I'm on this podcast with you.
How to save your career?
Yeah, it saved my career because I had basically been pushed to a place of complete irrelevance in my marketplace. Now, in mortgage, it's very easy to get commoditized quickly. In fact, some people start commoditized, which means they're only good as whatever rate they have to offer. Literally nothing else, which is why so many people in mortgage, sometimes you'll see them and they look quite tragic, like they haven't gotten out much and there's no personality needed for the job, which I buck against that trend. I think people bring so much more to the table and they're a lot more interesting than what it is that they do for a living, so they can let that part shine. But a lot of people get commoditized in this space, and that's exactly what had happened to me. At 16 years of being in the business at that time, when I was at this crossroads, I was ready to quit because I had lost a client, I'd gotten yelled at by somebody else, and I thought the universe was telling me it was time to quit because I was just tired of being disregarded and worth nothing more than whatever my rate was that was like above my head that day on the market. I'm like, I'm actually more than this. I can strategize better. I can socialize better. I can negotiate better. I can get in there and fight for these clients. I can fix their I can do so much more than whatever the stupid rate thing is. So I called up my performance coach that day and I asked him, hey, I think the universe is telling me to quit. He says, look, man, I know you're good at what you do and you know you're good at what you do, but does anybody else? If I Google you, what am I going to find? And the answer was nothing. Other than my martial arts background and career, you weren't going to find shit on me in terms of my mortgage, exposure and what that client experience was like and the people I've helped. So he says, I don't know what the answer is, man, but you got to fix this. So that's when I decided to go all in on social. I thought about it a little more. I went to a Gary Vee event a couple months later and then everything just clicked. Like, I've got to do this because leveraging the internet and giving myself the best possible position to be as visible. Because I know if I'm visible, which I can control, we can't ultimately control who works with us every time, right? We like to think that we can, but there's still that little bit that you have no control over and you could lose something. But I have direct 100% control over how visible I am. And if I can max that out every day or every chance that I get to sit in front of a camera or take out my phone and record a piece of content, then I'm stacking those wins and I'm going to give myself the best chance for success. So visibility, not negotiable at all. It's number one and everyone needs to take ownership of it. And that's your first counterpunch for how you're going to basically fight back against disruption.
And I think what's really important there, and I know this is leading right into number two, is that think about what would happen, Arjun, if you didn't have a coach or a mentor to turn to and have that conversation, right? If you're going at it alone in your own head, who knows where you would be right now? So listeners, that is very, very important, whether it's a coach, whether it's a community, whether it's just having a mentor. You don't have to go at any of this alone. And the other thing that I want you to keep in mind, because you might be sitting there saying, okay, well, Arjun, he's been around for 30 years doing whatever it is he's doing. He's been doing Taekwondo as well, that we're going to talk about for 40 years. Then you have Damon, who's been running Learn It. They have something to say. I don't have anything to say. Not true. We all have experiences. We all have our point of views, for who we work with or what we do. And we can be out there and we could share it. And especially on social channels like LinkedIn, people are pretty forgiving. So get out there, get out of your comfort zone and share. So thank you. That's step one of the counterpunch.
Let me tell you, whatever you are good at, and you better believe you're good at what you do, otherwise, what are you doing, right? So we have this insecurity that nobody wants to hear from us or whatever, but deep down, you know that you're good at what you do, otherwise you wouldn't be in this job. You're not perfect, none of us are. We're all trying to get better. We should be trying to get better, but you have something to offer. If you hold back and don't share something simply because you're worried about judgment or what will other people think, or I hate the way I look, or it's not that interesting, no one's going to care, you're actually being selfish.
I
You are
agree with
being
you
selfish
100%.
because what you have to say or what you have to share could impact one person. And if it does, if you're a good human being, which I suspect everyone who listens to this podcast is, because the guy who's the host of this is one of the best humans I know, then what you have to share is it could change someone's life. It could help them from avoiding a mistake that day. And then you'll think, well, you know what? I did my job if it helped one person. So the key to all of this is that you don't make it about you. Because if you're being selfish and you're only thinking of yourself, then you're always going to withhold it back because it's never perfect enough, or you're gonna constantly talk yourself out of it. But if it's always about them, if you're always in service to the audience, to the people that you serve, to the consumers that you're trying to solve their problems, you'll never run out of things to talk about, and you'll always do it with such sincerity, even if you look like shit or feel like shit that day. I joke about this all the time, Damon. 90% of my videos, if you follow me on social media, I look like shit. I look like shit because I'm like you. I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids. You don't look like shit, but I
don't
look
know.
like
My
shit.
wife says you always look pretty polished and sharp all the time. She wants me to
I
look
don't know.
more
It's
like you.
lighting, right? This is just lighting here. If we turn this light off right now, Damon, I'm going to look like shit. But it's because, you know what? I don't sleep well. I've got 2 kids just like you do. We're running around. Like, you got a lot of things. So if I used that excuse of I need to make sure I look good or feel good or whatever, I'd get nothing done because I don't feel that great any day. But I need to just get it done and control that visibility. I have a responsibility. I have an obligation as a good steward of my industry to share this stuff. You, on the other side of this device that you're listening to this podcast on, you have an obligation to serve people. And if you don't do it, somebody else will. That's the market we're in. It's a dog-eat-dog world right now. The internet, everything, the disruption we're talking about, it's all happening so fast. If you don't step up and do something or share something or talk about it, someone else is going to do it and they're going to eat your lunch.
Now, we may never get to step 2, but I have to bring up this point because there's a lot of people on here who are leaders and they are coaches. And another thing that it's your responsibility, if you really care and if you're a people first leader or a people first coach, what Arjun said also is 100% aligned with the fact that if somebody on your team is messing up or you need to have a difficult conversation with them and you're not having that conversation, you're being selfish because you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your own comfort zone. It's your responsibility to get out of your comfort zone and have that conversation with them so they have that information, just like we talked about a second ago about getting up and just sharing on social media, because if you help one person or you help that person in need, that's what it's all about. All right,
Right.
Step number 2.
Right. So the next thing that's really important is a sense of community. First was visibility. Next, you need community. You got to be part of something, right? Like you have to be part of a community. You have to be part of a mastermind. You have to have mentors. Like why I'm such a fan of not only this podcast, but this host of this podcast is because he and I are in 100% alignment about the power of mentorship. You being a mentor to other people and giving back, but also having them. I know you still, Damon, to this day have mentors. I've got loads of mentors in different areas. You don't need just one. There's always something that you can learn. So that is a sense of community. Being part of a group is a sense of community. Locking in with your church group, or if you're a person of faith, that is a sense of community. I run an online community of entrepreneurs and people that are trying to evolve as humans. That's a sense of community. But the point is, you need to be alongside people that understand your struggles, that are in the same trenches as you, that are fighting the same good fight. Because if you're not, then you're kind of in a bad echo chamber of just you and yourself and your own thoughts, or you're around the wrong people that are feeding your mind with negativity. And we all know that you're the sum of the 5 you hang out with the most, right? You're going to be influenced, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen. So why not be in a room with other people that want to evolve? They want to get better. They're trying to improve their life. They're trying to reach more people. They want to be innovative. Like how could you lose with that? So community is huge. And then the last thing, guys, is evolve. And this is what I mean, like when Damon asked, and when you asked that question, Damon, about it basically enhancing what you're doing with AI, like, and embracing these changes rather than fighting them, embrace them. You have to evolve. Part of evolving is recognizing where you're at, where the market that you're in is going, and how can you get there faster? Or how can you bridge the gap of where things are heading and where you might be stuck right now? And for almost every single person, the answer is going to be to accept or like actually team up with that thing that's out there that maybe you're afraid of. And that's AI, right? Like adhere to it, like incorporate it, learn about it. This is how you'll evolve. This is how you'll get better. This is how you'll take the step up, because we always have to be a 2.0, a 3.0, a 4.0. There has to be a new, like just like your phone gets an updated software every 6 months or whatever, you need an update all the time. If you're staying with the same old formula, the same old version of you and your business, you're going to be stuck, and then eventually you'll get pushed to a place of irrelevance. Because like I said, and I've said it continually, and I'll say it a few more times, I'm sure on this podcast, everything's happening too fast. It's too disruptive. It's too crazy out there. It's happening at warp speed in some industries, guys. And if you're listening to this, you might be nodding your head saying, yes, I already know it. It's already happening. You blink, it's like more change is coming. So we all have to evolve to get better. You've got to have a sense of community, and you need to be visible. That is your 3 counterpunch framework. You do all 3 of these things and work out a process for yourself to do it. I promise you, it doesn't matter what disruption comes to your industry or your field or to your world, you'll outlast it and you'll come out the other side smelling like a rose.
What are some other ways that people can evolve? I know we talked about communities and even watching podcasts like this, but what's another 1 or 2 ways that people could learn how to evolve?
A big part of evolvement is sometimes reconnecting with like a sense of purpose of like why it is you do what you do, right? I've got this story. It's where I came up with this method. I call it the gas method. And it's from 2008, right? The market crashed. I was in the mortgage market at that time. And Damon, you remember, '08 was a pretty dark time, right? If you own businesses, you come from a family of property owners. Like '08 was dark. Like I lost my ass.
The worst.
With all the property. It's the worst. I mean, like there's nothing that has come close to it. I know a lot of people take these last couple of years as potentially economically challenging, and that's their own frame of reference. Maybe that's the only thing they've ever experienced. To me, there was nothing like those dark days of '08, '09, even 2010. It took a while to come out of it. But, my brother and I worked, we've worked together. We got in the mortgage industry together in 2001, 2002-ish. And we were together. We went from having this lavish office to literally losing everyone, becoming brokers because the bank we worked for went completely under. We had to just, hang our license with some broker out of Las Vegas, some friends of ours that were running it. It was fine, but it was like, it felt like from a personal standpoint in our own egos, like we were taking a huge step down. There was no money to be made because the compensation laws were all being reformed. Nobody could buy a house. Everyone was scared shitless. It was bad. Now, what was happening in the midst of this was the foreclosure crisis. Everybody was losing their homes, right? Homes were being lost right, left, and center. Now, we had a lot of clients that were losing their homes. And we saw the calamity because we were in Nevada, which was the #1 state for foreclosures. Nevada and Michigan were like the top 2. It was always trading off. It was dark. I had buddies that I went to school with. They were having to move home and live with their parents. There was no jobs, like Nevada being a service-related economy. And it was really predicated on the construction and development industry. Like it was wiped out. So we saw all these people around us in pretty dire straits. And some started even calling us. They're like, I don't know what to do. The bank's going to take my house. What do I do? Can I talk to them about modifying? And then we thought, you know what? They don't even know how to talk to their banks. We speak mortgage. We speak bank. We know how to do it. Why don't we talk on their behalf and try and help some of these people save their houses? Like it's the only thing we can do. We're not going to make any money. Let's just help people that we've already helped. And let's take a situation that's really stressful and humiliating for a lot of families and make it a little less bad. So what we did was we asked these clients, hey, if you sign a borrower's authorization and allow us to talk to the bank on your behalf, let us do this for you. And all of them were like, please do it. I don't even know what to say. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so humiliated. I lost my job. We can't even afford, it's really like dehumanizing to them, right? And demoralizing to be able to do this. So I started doing it. We charged $250 for the authorization. That's all we were charging to do this. Now, let me tell you, Damon, 80% of the people, 75, 80% of the people, they couldn't even afford that. And we said, we don't care. It doesn't matter. You're our client. So some could give us that money. Others couldn't. This is what we made off of talking to banks for weeks on these people's behalf. But here's what happened. We ended up saving about 200 people from losing their homes. Now it's a drop in the bucket when you think about how many people did, but those 200 people.
No, it's not. That's 200 families.
It was. I mean, that's the way we saw it, right? But there was millions that lost their homes. So 200 might feel like a drop in the bucket for us in our market and the people we helped. 200, we felt like, we had achieved a little bit of a victory. And in fact, I wish we could have helped more. I mean, we tried with everything that we could. I wish we'd been doing it sooner, and I wish we did more of it earlier. But regardless, we helped 200 people. Who do you think those 200 people have come back to in all the years since, once their credit got fixed and they got remarried or divorced or their kids grew up and bought houses? Who do you think they've come to? They came to us, and it happened because of the gas method. And this is where you said where people can evolve. This is what I want everyone to take away from this. Everybody can apply the gas method. And here it is. Here's what it stands for. GAS. It stands for give a shit. Give a shit. If you give a shit about people and what you're doing sincerely, make it all about them and give a shit, you will evolve because you'll be doing things for all the right reasons. It'll never be about transactions. It'll never be about dollars. It'll be about the sincere connection and helping and aiding of the human being that you are, or the family that you are there to serve, that has hired you on a contractual basis, or they're hoping that you can be their miracle worker. If you put their needs first, their emotions first, I promise you, you'll make way more money than you thought was imaginable. It's in better alignment. The universe is going to respect you a lot more. You'll get more referrals. And most of all, you'll just feel a lot better about what it is you do, and you'll evolve as a human being, which will then make your business better. Like it's this amazing loop. So I call it the gas method. It's what I chalked it up because I always used to say, we just have to give a shit. And then when I abbreviate, I'm like, gas. Okay, it's the gas method. That's it. That's what we coined it as. But that's what we did in '08. I apply it now, and I encourage everyone, if you want to, something else outside of that framework, or just how we can all get better and evolve, just give a shit. Just give a shit.
You know where that also applies, Arjun, is when it comes to your network. If you are only tapping into your network when you need something, guess what? It goes away. It was funny, like back in the day when my family had hotels, I wouldn't hear from people forever until they'd call me up when they wanted a hotel room, right? Whether you're on LinkedIn or your community or whatever it is you're doing, if your mindset is always to give first and be there to help somebody, be in service to others. When your time of need comes around, because it probably will, whether it's for an endorsement for your book, or maybe you need a referral into a company, people will be there for you. But you can't just go dark and put yourself first. I think that give a shit method is a great approach.
I heard a quote from a guy, he's an entrepreneur, Eugene Rem. He started Steak, the restaurants in New York. And he also was one of the founding members of Rumble, the boxing gym that kind of started pre-COVID. And, they've kind of changed now. And I think a private equity group runs them. But he said, he had this great quote that if you are not in service to others, your time in business will be very limited. And I thought, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you're always in service to other people, you'll be in business for a long, long time. In fact, you'll never run out of runway because you're always making it about them. But if you're only in business to make money, well, money comes and goes, right? It's not infinite. There's cycles, there's economic factors, like there's seasonal factors, there's inflation, there's all kinds of things that can come in and really extract the money from the whole system. So if you're only chasing dollars, like your time's gonna be limited. But if you're always in service to others, you'll always have work to do.
I want to pivot a little bit. If you guys haven't figured out yet, Arjun and I have been best friends for a long time. And I think there's a lot of things that we have in common, or at least I hope that we have in common, is he's a world-class athlete. And I don't know if I'm a world-class athlete, but he's a 2-time Taekwondo champion and was the coach of the Team USA for close to 10 years. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about your experience, both from competition, but also from coaching.
Yeah, they're two different things. And I appreciate you asking, David. And you are an absolute world-class athlete, man. I mean, you don't play college baseball for the University of Pepperdine or ASU unless you're a world-class athlete, man. Like that doesn't happen. So, or get drafted by the Atlanta Braves, my favorite team in the world. So anyways, the experience of competing for Team USA as an athlete was a gift for those 7 years. And then for, the 10 years in coaching, there's a lot of things that you learn about what makes a high performer really tick. And I know, as an athlete, for me, I could speak from my experience and then also the people that I knew I would compete against. And it's pretty similar to, to what I would see on the coaching side. But I'll just tell you, there's two things that all these people that end up on the podium have. And I'm not talking about what separates necessarily a gold medalist from a silver medalist or a bronze medalist, because that is a whole nother science. The difference between a gold medalist and a silver medalist is sometimes something so small. It's one vote. It's one decision, right? Because it's 5 judges. So it could be a 3-2 decision. If one of those judges had flipped, the other guy's in. So it's literally that fragile. And sometimes to end up in that round, but being, left out of it is why you're a bronze medalist. So I say anyone who ends up on a podium has done something right, or they're doing something at a pretty high level. One is a very high level of mental toughness. Now, I'm not talking about mental toughness in the sense of like how we were raised, Damon, or how our coaches used to talk to us. Shake it off, be mentally tough. And that's fine. I'm a big advocate for that. Don't get me wrong. I'm old school. I do think that we whine about things too often, or that we feel too much
sensitive.
at times.
Too sensitive.
We're just too sensitive. That we're almost in a society of snowflakes right now, and I refuse to adhere to that. I know you do too, and you're not raising your kids that way. But that's sometimes the way people are. So when I say mental toughness, I don't mean there's just shake everything off and never feel. What I mean is the definition that I actually heard from the former Dallas Cowboys head coach, Jason Garrett. He used to have this hanging in the Cowboys locker room, and I saw it on a documentary one time, which is be your best regardless of circumstance. That's mental toughness. I think it's beautiful. You be your best. Everyone's got shit going on.
So what does that mean? Get a little bit more specific on that.
Thank you, David. So look, everybody has something going on, right? They're going through taking care of a sick family member. They're going through financial dire straits, or they're going through a divorce, or they just had a death in the family. Whatever it is they're going through, when they get there, none of that stuff matters, right? They have to be their best regardless of circumstance. The circumstance is not the excuse. They have to be their best in spite of it, okay? In spite of those circumstances. Because again, everybody's got something. Nobody shows up and then the guy who wins, you're like, must be nice. He has no drama in his life. I'm going through this, this, and this. You have no idea. He or she might have just done a better job of compartmentalizing these things and still finding a way to deliver their best output or effort in the moments when the lights were brightest, regardless of circumstance. The other thing that all these athletes have, and I had it without a doubt in the 2 gold medals I won, even in the 1 world championships where I lost, because you still never have 100% control over the outcome, right? Sometimes life or the universe has a different plan for you. As you know, as an athlete that's had setbacks and injuries, like sometimes it just throws you a curveball, right? No pun intended, right? As a baseball guy. But the one thing that you must have is maximum, full, unwavering belief in yourself. You have to believe that there's no one in the world that's going to beat you that day. Because if you, for 1 second, believe even at a 99% threshold, your opponent will smell that on you the way a shark smells blood in the water, and you're finished. Because I promise you, they probably aren't coming into the ring with that. So when you come into the ring, when you're walking into the arena that morning, when you wake up and you're on the bus with your country and you're wearing the stars and stripes and you're going there and you hear the opening ceremonies or you hear all this stuff going on, your belief in yourself has to be so locked in and maxed out that win, lose, or draw, you just know that you've done everything you can do to prepare. You've given it your all, and you're going to go out there and execute. So belief and mental toughness would be those 2 traits that I'd say I've consistently seen. When I talk to these guys, like when they come off podiums or when I came off a podium and gave an interview, you'll hear that in the interview. I've said it when I talk to someone. There was no one in the world that was going to beat me today. I respect everyone I come into the ring with. All the people. I'm friends with so many of the guys I used to compete against. We're all retired now. Everyone's old. We all walk a little funny, look a little funny. We're still great friends from different countries. But I'll tell you, when I woke up those mornings, no disrespect to them. I respect them and their craft and what they bring to the table. Nobody was beating me that morning in the world. Nobody. That's the belief. That's the level I would operate at. And I think everybody needs to, regardless of what business or field you're in, because that's what's required for survival and to thrive in the current market and climate that we're in. You got to believe, and mental toughness, that definition, not just shake it off and feel nothing, but be your best regardless of circumstance.
So I put out a solo episode, I don't know, about a month or 2 ago, and could put it in show notes. One of the most underrated skills, I think, Arjun, is just showing up, even when you don't want to. I mean, there's so many, that's the difference to me a lot of times between good and great. Somebody might be good, maybe they don't feel good, they just don't show up. Or maybe you have a bad customer call and you let it ruin the rest of your day. You owe it to your team or whatever to show up and, like you said, be your best. And when it comes to belief, one of my favorite lines of all time, I was just thinking about this when I was listening to you talk, is you remember I think it was Rocky 2, where Rocky got knocked down and he got up and he told his trainer, he said, "I'm not going down again." I'm just, that's it. I'm not going down again. He just believed in himself. Now, how much of that belief came from just your inner self, or how much did coaches help you see things in yourself, Arjun, that maybe you didn't even see that you had in yourself before that point?
It was everything. Without them, without the mentors and the key people around me and the team, there's no way I would have had that level of certainty or belief in myself. You'd have a certain amount because we all have a self-image, we have confidence, okay? But there's limits to it. And you also have the other side of your brain that's always going to make you scared or implant those doubts or put up walls or fears or, trigger you to the past of when it didn't work out the last time. This is why having a circle of people around you that are committed to your success, but they believe in you. And whether you're the person that has these people around you or you are one of those people for others in your life, like there is so much power, you can't even quantify it. You can't even put a price tag on it. In my career, the people that were around me, the instructors, the physical trainers, the mindset coach, my parents, right? Because I would talk to them a lot when I would be training or driving home from long training sessions. I'd call and catch up with my mom for the hour drive, driving back home from Pleasanton to get back to the city at night. And I needed to kind of stay awake because I was so exhausted. So I'd call my mom and we'd catch up in the car. That belief from everyone around me was so strong that it would almost fuel me. I almost felt like there's no way I can let these people down. I don't want to let myself down, but I don't want to let them down. But it provided me not just with confidence, but such like an inner strength, but more importantly, like a peace, like a certain peace, like I'm good. I've got the best people behind me. They believe in me. I believe in myself. This is a match. And I'll tell you, to use the Rocky analogy, I call it the Rocky 3 moment. Rocky 3 is actually my favorite Rocky of all the Rockies. A lot of people, if you poll most people out there and say, what's your favorite Rocky? They'd say Rocky 4 because of the fight with the Russian. The soundtrack was amazing.
I like Rocky 2, but okay, they're all good.
See, you're like a Rocky 2 fan. But Rocky 3, the reason is because he had made it and then lost everything. Mickey died, his trainer died, he got destroyed. His whole self-image was shattered to where he questioned everything. Was I ever that good? Was I only being propped up? Was I a fake champion or whatever? And there was only one way to find out, which was to put yourself back together again and go do this. And you're either going to prove them right or prove them wrong. And he had his struggles with that. But in the end, because the way movies end, it was happy, right? And he won. He knocked out Clubber Lang, Mr. T in the end. He was a much better version of himself. Like even in the movie, they made him look that way. He was jacked. He was completely cut, lean. He looked incredible. But there's this image at the end that kind of freezes. It's right, and it's just right, the precursor towards the final scene. He's with this team and he's flexing. He's got the belt back and he's won. His wife's on one arm. And this other team of people that weren't part of it the other time, but he constructed a new team for a better version of himself. We're all there. And they were all part of this because they believed in him, right? And that to me has always stuck out. Like the people that you have around you, the mentors, the coaches, the people that are influential, the people that love you, unconditionally, and they're there to support you. You take that, you combine it with your own commitment to craft and your own passion and your desire to achieve this goal and whatever it is, you're going to be unstoppable. And so, Damon, to answer your question fully and bring it home here, man, like you asked, like how important was that, or was that a part of it? Was it all me? No, it was all them to fuel what I had and take it to a whole nother level.
So let's flip the script a little bit. Now you're in the coaching seat. So some advice for, let's say, emerging leaders. How do you help bring out that greatness in the individuals on your team who maybe don't see that in themselves? Maybe they're just type A personalities and they're perfectionists even, but they get down on themselves and they can't see that greatness that we can see in them. How do you help bring that out in them?
Well, I think what is dead out there is the one size fits all approach, which is very similar to like school curriculum. It's taking a curriculum or a syllabus and then just laying it out there and saying, everyone follow this, read it line by line, regurgitate it and come back. This is where I feel coaches, and you and I have talked a lot about this and you touch on it in your book in terms of like knowing your learners, right? I call it learn your learner. You need to know the individual that you are coaching in these situations. It's not it's not that I have a team, right? When I had a team of athletes, it would be about 75 to 80 athletes, me and one other head coach. There's always 2 head coaches, so co-head coaches. We didn't have a team we had 78 or 79 athletes that were all individual, all unique, and had different learning styles, modalities, response patterns. You had to take the time to understand, because I need to know what is it going to take to get the most out of this person. And that's going to be different from how I get the most out of that person or that athlete, which this requires you to spend time getting to learn them, getting to understand them, knowing a little bit about their history, what triggers them, what they've been through. And again, everybody's different. So I think in coaching, when I made this switch, and I didn't, for the 10 years that I coached Team USA, I would say for the first few cycles of world championships, because they happened every 2 to 3 years, it would vary, I didn't really fully adopt this or incorporate it. I think I was doing a little bit of it naturally because it's my personality to want to get to know people, but I wasn't really committing to it in terms of a coaching philosophy. And when I did in the back end of my coaching career, the last half of it, everything changed. I got more out of people, and forget about the results, because there was plenty of those. But the transformation of the change, the needle movement in their lives, and what I was able to have a little bit of a special impact or influence on was because of this. I learned what their response patterns were. I got to understand them on a human level, which then helped me serve up the recipe for how we're going to get even more out of them. I need to know where everyone's coming from. So I read it in a book by Coach Pete Carroll. Coach Carroll said it, and I think he's one of the best coaches, a Bay Area guy, right? Grew up in Tiburon, I think. Coached football all over the Bay Area, and now he's the coach of the Raiders, which aren't doing too good, but he's still a great coach. But he said that in his book, which is learn your learner. Understand the person that you're trying to influence or impact. And he did that at the college level, which is why he had such success. He didn't believe that you just had this wide, broad stroke philosophy for how you coach or how you lead. Yes, you might have principles that are broad and general, right? Or culture that is broad and general because it's consistent. You don't want to have varying culture. That ends up being quite conflictive. But you have to, in terms of how you reach people and what you're going to do to get the most out of your people, like that has to be done on an individual basis. And that's what I've adopted. I think, again, we talked about a lot about this, but I think this is where leaders that run organizations, that run sales teams, that run big groups, small groups, this is where athletic coaches, this is where people can succeed, is really learn your learner.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you and I talked about it a lot. It takes curiosity, it takes patience, and it takes genuinely caring about your people. Leadership isn't, or coaching, it isn't one size fits all. I had a great guest on the show named Ethan Evans, a big time VP from Amazon, and he called it chameleon leadership. It's not how you want to lead, it's how they want to be led. How do you set them up for success? It takes self-awareness, curiosity, and that is so important. Now, you mentioned that came on for you later on in your career coaching. Do you look back, it doesn't matter who the individual is, but do you look back and think about how you could have made a bigger difference in somebody's life if you would have coached them differently?
I try not to ever operate with too many rear view mirrors. There was missed opportunities for results that I feel we could have had in groups, in team competitions and stuff. Some of it was just, like I said, the universe had a different plan for us. We had an injury that affected us, or we made one mistake, and that one mistake cost us the overall gold medal, and instead we didn't even end up on the podium. Like, that's how delicate it is sometimes. But in terms of individuals, I don't feel there was maybe necessarily a specific story or anything, because again, in that first half of that career, I wasn't connecting with them on the level to where it lasted with me so specifically or so clearly. In the back end of the career, it did. And so I feel like just by simply showing more of an interest in seeing these people, human beings just want to be ultimately seen. They want to be loved and they want to be seen. They want to be acknowledged. That's the easiest way to get more out of people. Just love them and see them for who they are. Stop barking at them or shouting at them, but see them for their individuality or what they do bring to the table, right? Instead of constantly making them feel bad for what they're not. When I started doing this, it brought more out. But I feel like, Damon, in the back end of the career, I don't have any regrets over anything or feel like there were any missed opportunities. Sure, we could have gotten some better results, but these people all evolved. And that's what I said, like, your gauge of success or how you're going to measure success before you do something, it's very important that you quantify that. And don't make it so zero sum, because if you do, you miss out on everything else beautiful that might have happened along the way. Like, if you go into a competition, I tell our athletes, There's 75 of us, 78, 80 of you. The reality is a small handful of you are going to end up on the podium and get a medal. The vast majority of this team won't even get a medal. So for every single person to say, I'm getting a gold medal, otherwise this whole thing is a bust, is foolish, okay? Because what we need to define as success is an individual definition for each person on their own, and it's all unique. But everyone needs to do that. So for whatever you're doing, whatever you lead, I think it's a healthy exercise. Let's define success, not necessarily with the material outcome, but the success on a personal level. Who did I become in this process? Did I overcome these demons? Am I just proud that I put myself into like one of the most stressful situations of my life and I didn't wilt? That could be the elusive victory within. There's a lot of different ways to define success. Medals come and go. Trophies, championships, they're great, but they're not everything. And to say that you either get these trophies or these medals or you're a failure, I think is, it's a little bit irresponsible, because a lot of people that end up with trophies and medals are not that great.
I'm more into effort over results anyways,
Yes,
a lot of times
totally.
too.
Are you improving? What did you become?
Are you improving? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, we want to win. You guys like you and I, and we all want to win. But even with our kids, it's putting in the effort and doing your best. And if you don't get an A on that math test, don't worry about it. You gave it your best. Well, let's figure out what you could do better next time or differently and put in more work.
It's always a chance to improve, right? There's no such thing as losing. It's only a loss if you quit right there, right? But if you have a setback, you didn't get the A, you had a bad game, you're struck out 4 times, you know what? Tomorrow's a new day. What do we got to do to get better? It's an opportunity. Everything's an opportunity. With no loss, there's no opportunity at actually really truly winning.
One more thing I want to bring up about the Taekwondo. I heard you talking about in one of the podcasts I watched, there was a mantra, willing to learn, never stop learning, and a good coach is somebody who's willing to teach all the time. Is it something like that?
Yeah. So it's called the student-instructor relationship, and then the instructor-student relationship. Like, it goes both ways. And it says a good student is willing to learn anytime, any place, and can be taught anytime, any place. They're willing to learn, they can be taught anytime, any place. And a good instructor is willing to teach anytime, any place. And that's it's a beautiful thing, because it's ancient Korean philosophy. That's where this is all rooted in. But it's beautiful because that level of humility, that level of service, and just being in service or being subservient to the person you're serving or the person that is serving you, is how you're ultimately going to surrender, be vulnerable, and be able to take in the lesson or grow and learn, right? And so I've just always thought that made so much sense, and it applies in business, right? Like, a good leader is willing to lead or guide or mentor or sit down with his people anytime, any place. The guy who says, I don't have time for this, he shouldn't even be leading. Get a new leader. Fire that guy. Leave the company, leave the group. And a good team member is willing to improve and be taught and mentored anytime, any place. So just think about that. If you have both of those dynamics at play, and it's much easier said than done, guys. What I'm painting here is a little bit idealism, but it's not to say that it's impossible. There are some companies and groups and organizations, teams, whatever it is, dynamics that have this at play, and some that are working towards it. But just think about it. If you have a coach that's willing to coach you anytime, any place, and you yourself are willing to learn anytime, any place, how could you go wrong?
Think about that culture there. David Brock coined this, great sales leader, coaching in the cracks. So coaching doesn't have to always take time, in your formal one-on-one coaching. But let's say you just get out of the sales meeting and you're walking over to Starbucks and you got that 3 or 4 minutes. Take that opportunity to share something with your team member instead of looking at your phone. Coaching in the cracks. Find every opportunity. And then on the flip side, if you're with your leader, don't be screwing around. Ask them questions. Learn. Be curious.
Those opportunities that you get with your leaders, with your coaches, with your mentors, they're fragile. I've had 2 mentors in my life that have really stuck out to me. And I'm sure you've lost some too along the ways, Damon. Maybe we haven't had the chance to talk about it, but there were 2 that I lost. One, in the way he was more of a finance and economics, almost like political science type of mentor that I looked up to. And I met him because he became a client. And then we ended up talking, and I saw that he had all these photos in his office of him and President Reagan. And I was like, wow, what is this? And we started talking, and then he became his mentor. He passed away a few years later because he was older and he wasn't in the best of health. But I miss those conversations. And I wish I'd driven out to Los Altos to sit with him and do more. I look back on it, right? I had an economics professor at school that after I graduated, I would go back a couple of times in that first year after graduating to have lunch with him, like maybe once a quarter. And we'd have these fascinating conversations about economic theory, commerce, fiscal and monetary policy, stuff that just expanded my mind. I could listen to this guy all day, and he was in one of my final courses that I took, but I just took to him so well, and then I just struck up this friendship. He passed away from actually it was a terrible car accident like months later, and I was like, man, if I could have a few more. So don't take those opportunities for granted, guys, because everything in life is pretty fragile, including human dynamics and existence. I think we don't need to even talk about it, but the current times we're in, like nobody knows what's going to happen today or tomorrow anymore. Like nothing is given. So if you get opportunities to be around good people and learn, or to be that person that can share wisdom or impart it on others, like please do it and don't take it for granted.
Don't take it for granted. And if you have somebody you're learning from or is willing to share their knowledge with them, thank them. Be grateful. Write them a note. Share with them what you did with that. It can't be a one-sided relationship. Switching gears a little bit, we talked about community, but I really want to talk a little bit about your LFG community, because it's a pretty modern new way to go about things. So can you talk a little bit about what it is and why you created it?
Yeah, so we we have LFG as a media company, and a couple of years ago I wanted to
launch. What does
launch.
LFG stand for?
It stands for what you think it stands for, buddy. It stands for let's fucking go. So it's it was just more of a mantra, energy, and I'm not anybody
I
special
knew
for,
what it
like,
stood for.
yeah, I know you did. But it's fun to get to say it. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing it up. No, like a lot of athletes say it, people say it. I would always say it when I was like pumping myself. We all say it, right? You and I have said it to each other, but when we're watching a game, like, let's fucking go. Like people say it, but there's a certain energy or activation that happens within your body when you say something like that and you really mean it. So I would always say it to the athletes. I would always say it to myself when I was competing. And I knew I wanted to do something with it. So I thought, well, let's call it like LFG energy, like that's because that is the energy. It's LFG energy. What kind of energy? LFG energy. So had a logo created. I didn't know what it was going to turn into. It eventually became this media company, an event hosting platform, plus a media company that helps people out with short form media and social media content in general and strategy. We started a podcast with it, the LFG Energy Podcast, which is stories about resilience and beating the odds and, the indomitable human spirit. And then also, I wanted to start a community of people that were kind of embodying some of these same values and cultural sets of wanting to evolve, wanting to lift others, wanting to accept the fact that the sum of all parts is much, much greater if we all come together and lift, and everyone has something to contribute and teach or to give back. And so I started this community a couple of years ago. We've got 100 plus entrepreneurs from around the country. We meet once a month on Zoom, and we get someone will lead the talk as a thought leader, as a successful business owner, an Olympian, a coach, someone who's a high performer, but they've beaten odds. They've really had to dig at certain points when things were dark, bleak, or the outcome seemed very much in doubt, and they had to find a way to break through. Because I don't want to talk about the happy ending story when everyone makes their money and whatever. Like, there's enough of those. I want to talk about when people were ready to quit, when they were sadly, suicidal, or they didn't feel like they could go on, or they had an addiction issue, or they were about to lose it all, or they did lose it all. Like, how did they come back from that? That's what I'm fascinated by. So our group is very much built around that kind of emotion, if you will. And then we also have, a lot of business building that goes on with it. We have bonus calls every month that are focused on people developing more social media presence, how to do this better, how to podcast, how to get yourself out there, how to build a brand. One time a year, we do an in-person event called Society Day. It's our in-person day and holiday dinner for everyone that's in the group. But we meet virtually, and it's a mastermind level community, but without a mastermind price tag, because they can be very expensive. And we made this very affordable. Basically breaks out to be the price of a cup of coffee per day. But I love it. It's actually what I'm most excited about in all the work I do, because it's all about people. It's all about, great stories of change and involvement and growth. And I hear it every day. I'll get a message from someone in our group. I just landed this thing, or I finally took that risk. I did this thing. Nothing makes me feel better than getting those messages. Or I decided to go out on my own and start that business and stop playing scared, stop playing small. Like, I love hearing stuff like this.
Who is the ideal candidate to be a member of your group?
I don't want to say that we necessarily have a specific avatar, because we've got a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. We have graduate students, we have athletes, we have people that work in government. We've got interior designers. I think the common trait or the ideal person is just someone who's looking for a community that has their back, because everyone needs like a sense of belonging. Like we said, we talked about that, like the need to be seen, the sense for community. And this really gives people a place to where they feel like I'm not alone on an island anymore. I might work in Des Moines, Iowa, but I'm part of that group, and it's a nationwide group. And when I'm on those calls or when I'm in the online space, I feel like I'm in a big group, or like in a big room with people. I don't feel alone anymore. And that's really the type of person. It's someone who is working but is not ever satisfied with where they're at. They want to evolve, and they also have a story to share themselves. Maybe they have beaten cancer. Maybe they've beaten the odds. Maybe they have come back from something, maybe gotten over an addiction that was crippling their life or nearly cost them everything. That's a story worth sharing, because look, we can look up to these influencers and these people that are gajillionaires, and they're great to listen to. Don't get me wrong. You and I both love it. We hear them on podcasts. You've interviewed many of them. Like, you're around them. But the reality is they are like decades ahead of us in terms of like where they're at. But if I talk to you, Damon, and you've had so many countless inspiring stories about stuff you've overcome in your life with me, like that, you're a guy who's my neighbor. Like, you're my friend. I talk to you all the time. You're a text message away. Like, that to me is more reachable and tangible. And so I feel there's power in that within our group. So I really encourage a lot of collaboration and content that comes from the members themselves. Yes, we have the high level people that come in once a month, but a lot of the magic actually happens just amongst us.
I've spoken to several of the members, and they love it. And one of the common themes that I hear everybody say is that you got to be willing to give back. It's not just sit there and absorb, but share your story, be there for other members, and it's like it's a true community. And they shared with me several great takeaways and stories, and it just has that vibe, that energy, which I think is so amazing. I mean, and I love to see how excited you are about it. That's a big thing for you. But another thing which you're amazing, before we wrap up here, I've seen you speak. I mean, you're an amazing speaker, keynote speaker, and you're out there like 4 or 5 days a week almost doing it. What are one or two of the most common or most relevant, in need keynotes that you're doing these days out there for organizations or associations?
Well, one of them is the managing or handling of disruption, what we talked about here. I feel like I'm doing that multiple times a week, whether it's virtual or in person, is talking about disruption, because every industry is facing it, and it's causing a lot of fear and unrest amongst individuals and sectors of the economy, right? And spaces. So there's definitely that. The other one is, about how we overcomplicate business. And really, that business, in theory, is actually very simple. It's not easy in execution. Executing in business is hard. But business, as a theory, is super simple, and we overcomplicate it all the time. And I break this down to kind of reset people, so they take a step back, take a breather, and be like, all right, I'm overstimulated. I'm kind of consumed by shiny object syndrome. I'm subscribed to too many things. I'm watching too many YouTubes, and I'm actually complicating my business, which is stopping me from actually being able to do that very business. But business is really simply identifying a problem in a market and getting really good at solving it. Or maybe you're already good at something and it solves a particular problem. You connect those dots, that's it. That's all business is. It's solving the problems of a particular market segment or space. And when we think about it that way, again, simple in theory, it makes it a lot easier, because now you can just attack it from that side. Okay, here's what I'm good at. Here's the problem it solves. How do we connect those dots, right? Instead of thinking about all these other things, because so many people, and I'm guilty of it from time to time, when I feel like I'm not making enough traction in any business, whether it's on the media side, the mortgage side, even in my own personal brand, it's typically because I am listening to too much, or I'm absorbing too much on the outside that's overcomplicating it. I've just got to recognize that whatever my skill sets are, my superpowers or whatever, they are uniquely positioning me to solve a problem that needs to be solved in the market. And I need to identify the market segment that needs this answer or this secret sauce, and just connect that. So that's where a lot of these keynotes tend to be going now, Damon, is on, managing disruption, counterpunching against it, and, not complicating business, uncomplicating it, untangling it a bit.
Well, the managing disruption is huge, obviously. And also, I couldn't agree more that we make business a lot of times too complex. It's not easy to execute really at all, but it doesn't need to be as complex as people make it. Keep it simple. And I'm kind of like you too. Sometimes we jump at shiny objects and try to cover too many things and get stretched too thin, where you just got to kind of dial it in, focus on what your strengths are. I think it's a great message for everybody, Arjun. It's awesome. Just like me, I mean, we got 2 little kids. You got 2 beautiful little daughters. Let's fast forward 10, 15 years from now. If somebody asked your daughters, tell me a little bit about your daddy. What is it you want them to say about you?
That he was kind. And my dad is kind. That's the only thing I give a shit about that my daughters think of their father as. My grandmother was the kindest human being I ever knew. And she taught me some lessons that have like stuck with me. They were so paramount at the time and I had no idea how impactful they'd be, but it's literally how I've, applied myself in every dynamic I've been part of, every group I've started, everything I try and do, giving a shit, is just being kind. It's the only currency that matters. How much, I don't care what they think of their dad about how much money he made or what he did or any of his gold medals or where we lived or what toys we had or what vacations we went. Those are nice, the memories, of course, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying none of that matters to me, but if there's only one thing I care about that they just remember is that their father was kind, because it's if I only have one thing I can leave them with, if I was only given one or one thing to bestow upon them, it's that quality. It's just be kind. If they're kind, decent human beings, everything else will solve itself. You and I both know it's like, sadly, it's a lacking trait in society, right? And we're seeing it. It's like sometimes the world gets a little darker and uglier, and it's because kindness is lacking. So that would be it, Damon. It would just be that I want them to remember their dad is kind.
That gave me goosebumps, and it's awesome. I love it, man. The truth is, you're not just saying that, you mean it. So where can our listeners connect with you at?
Instagram's the best place. You find me on Instagram at Arjun Mortgage. I interact with everyone on there. I spend a lot of time, some would say way too much time on there. So that's where I interface with so many people, and then we could find ways to collaborate. And look, I love to expand and chop it up and talk with people. If I can ever be of help to anyone in any space with anything that we've talked about on this podcast or anything else, like just reach out to me there and let's connect and talk. Would that be the best place, Damon?
All right. Well, this has been amazing, as I knew it would. And for our listeners out there, my challenge to you is think about disruption. Are you avoiding it or are you jumping headfirst into it? Because if you're avoiding it, you got problems. But if you're really ready to take it on, think about the counterpunch framework. And if you're looking for a great community of great individuals who are looking to take it all to the next level, you got to check out Arjun's work. Okay? Please do that. Until next time, everybody, stay curious, keep learning, and have a great day. Thank you, Arjun.
Thanks, Damon. Love you, brother.
Be more human in your interactions with other people. I would expect in my family that if I do something terrible, I'm going to tell my family members, I am sorry. We've created this current culture of